The awakening. The rhythmic beeping of machines was the first thing Michael became aware of as he drifted from the depths of unconsciousness. His mind was clouded, his body heavy as though a great weight pressed down on him. Memories were fragmented, flashes of light, an argument, and then nothing but the void. Slowly, his senses sharpened. The sterile smell of the hospital, the faint hum of a monitor, and then voices. Michael struggled to move, to open his eyes, but his body wouldn't respond. It felt like he was buried in wet cement. He focused on the voices, his lifeline to the world outside this paralyzed state. "Yes, James," a voice said softly, almost conspiratorial. His heart sank as recognition washed over him. It was Lisa, his wife of 15 years. The warmth and comfort her voice once brought now felt alien, a faint chill curling through his veins. "It's all set," Lisa continued. "The inheritance will transfer to us soon. We just have to wait." Michael isn't waking up. The word slammed into Michael's chest like a sledgehammer. Inheritance. Us. Wait. James. His mind reeled as he pieced together the fragments of her cold and calculated tone. His wife wasn't just betraying him. She was conspiring with someone he once trusted. The very thought burned through his confusion and fear, leaving only a raw and simmering anger. Unable to confront her directly, Michael knew instinctively he had to act. But how? His body was uncooperative, and he was tethered to machines that announced his every heartbeat. If he was to expose the truth, he had to think carefully, observe, and play his part perfectly. Lisa's voice softened, laced with fake concern as she approached his bedside. "You're such a fighter, Michael," she whispered, her fingers brushing lightly against his arm. "We all believe you'll wake up someday." He fought the urge to recoil from her touch, to scream at the betrayal, but he knew better. For now, he was trapped in this role of the silent, helpless patient, even as anger and betrayal boiled beneath the surface. As Lisa continued her performance, Michael replayed her words in his mind, each sentence exposing her motives. James, her partner in crime, was a name he hadn't expected to hear in this context. James wasn't just anyone. He was Michael's closest business associate and confidant. The pain of that dual betrayal was a searing reminder of how deep this conspiracy ran. Lisa's voice dropped lower. "Once everything is signed over, we can finally move on. Just a little longer." She left the room, her heels clicking against the hospital floor. The silence that followed was deafening, save for the beep of the heart monitor that reminded Michael he was still alive, still fighting. Though his body remained unresponsive, his mind was sharper than ever. He had to plan, to find a way to expose their treachery without them realizing he was aware. As the hours passed, Michael's memories began to return in bursts. He remembered the accident, a car crash, the sound of tires screeching, and the shattering of glass. His last clear memory was driving late at night after yet another heated argument with Lisa. She had accused him of neglect, of burying himself in his work, and leaving her to fend for herself emotionally. He had countered that she spent more than she earned, squandering money on luxuries while he worked tirelessly to build a future for them. He had thought the argument was about love and attention. Now he saw it in a new light. Lisa had likely been laying the groundwork for this betrayal long before the crash. The betrayal cut deeply, but Michael's anger wasn't just directed at Lisa and James. He also blamed himself. Had his ambition blinded him to the cracks forming in his marriage? Could he have prevented this if he had been more attentive, more present? These questions haunted him as he lay motionless, replaying every detail of their life together. Several days passed in this state. Lisa visited often, always with a practiced expression of concern. Her coldness behind the facade became more evident with each visit. Michael observed her intently, using the time to catalog her behavior and conversations. Every time her phone rang and she stepped into the corner of the room, her voice became softer, her words calculated. "Yes, the lawyer said everything is in place. We just need the doctors to confirm his condition," she said one afternoon. "No, I'm not worried. He's practically a vegetable. Even if he wakes up, he'll be too weak to do anything. Michael's resolve solidified. He couldn't allow them to succeed. But how? The thought of exposing their betrayal fueled him with a fierce determination. He had to regain control of his body and his life. One evening, while Lisa was absent, a new visitor arrived. Dr. Rebecca Hart, a kind-eyed physician, entered his room to check his vitals. Unlike the detached professionalism of the other doctors, she lingered for a moment longer, her gaze fixed on Michael's face. "Michael," she said softly, as though testing the waters, "if you can hear me, try to give me a sign." The words were like a lifeline. Michael summoned every ounce of willpower, trying to move something, anything. After what felt like an eternity, his index finger twitched ever so slightly. Rebecca's eyes widened. "There you are," she whispered, her voice a mix of relief and determination. "Don't worry, Michael. I'll help you." Her words were the first ray of hope Michael had felt since waking. Though he couldn't speak, Rebecca seemed to understand the gravity of his situation. Over the next few days, she began spending more time in his room, subtly testing his responses and encouraging him to strengthen his muscles. Michael's silent alliance with Rebecca became his lifeline. Each time Lisa visited, unaware of his progress, Michael felt a flicker of satisfaction. With Rebecca's help, he would not only recover, he would expose the treachery of the people he had once trusted the most. Silent observations and hidden allies. The days stretched into weeks, each passing moment sharpening Michael's determination to fight back. Trapped in his uncooperative body, he spent his waking hours observing every detail, cataloging every conversation, and learning to use his newfound ally, Dr. Rebecca Hart, as his bridge to reclaim his life. Rebecca had become a quiet yet persistent presence in Michael's recovery. Her calm demeanor and perceptive nature were a source of solace, a stark contrast to Lisa's calculated visits. She had begun to notice subtle changes in Michael's responses, the slight twitch of a finger, a flutter of his eyelids. These small victories were monumental to Michael, markers of progress on his long road to recovery. One evening, as Rebecca adjusted his monitors, she leaned in closer. "Michael," she whispered, her voice low and reassuring, "I've been reviewing your medical records and noticed something odd. Lisa seems very interested in your condition, more than a concerned spouse should be. If there's something you're not able to tell me yet, don't worry. I'll figure it out." Her words were both comforting and unsettling. Michael's heart raced as he struggled to signal her, his index finger moving just enough to catch her attention. Rebecca paused, her sharp eyes narrowing as she studied his hand. "You understand, don't you?" she asked gently. Another slight twitch confirmed it. Rebecca smiled, a spark of determination lighting in her eyes. "Good. Stay strong, Michael. I'll keep digging." Lisa's deception. Meanwhile, Lisa continued her visits with her polished performance of a loving wife. She brought flowers and gifts, spoke in a sugary tone that grated on Michael's nerves, and occasionally shed crocodile tears in front of the nurses. But her true self was never far from the surface. When she thought no one was listening, her phone conversations with James revealed the darker side of her plans. One afternoon, while sitting beside Michael's bed, Lisa answered a call with a furtive glance around the room. "Yes, James," she murmured. "The lawyer assured me the paperwork will be finalized within a week. Once the inheritance is secured, we're free to move forward." Michael listened with a cold fury, the betrayal stinging anew with every word. She continued, her voice lowering to a conspiratorial tone. "No, he hasn't shown any signs of waking up. The doctors think he's still comatose, and I make sure to play the grieving wife perfectly." Her laughter, light and carefree, cut through Michael like a knife. "Soon, we'll have everything, James. The properties, the shares, all of it. And Michael, he'll just fade away." Lisa ended the call, turned back to Michael, and adjusted the blanket around his chest. "Don't worry, love," she cooed, her voice dripping with false affection. "Everything will be fine." Michael's resolve hardened further. Lisa had underestimated him, and that mistake would cost her dearly. Rebecca's discoveries. Rebecca's investigation deepened. She started piecing together financial documents, noticing irregular transactions and unauthorized withdrawals from Michael's accounts. During one of her discreet visits, she shared her findings with Michael. "I found something troubling," she whispered, showing him a printout of his financial statements. "Lisa's been moving money, small amounts at first, but it's escalating. It's clear she's funneling it into a private account. I've already contacted a lawyer I trust. They're discreet and will help us build a case." Michael felt a flicker of hope. Rebecca wasn't just an ally. She was a warrior, fighting on his behalf while he remained trapped in silence. With her help, he could not only expose Lisa's treachery, but also protect everything he had worked so hard to build. Rebecca leaned in closer. "If you're ready to move forward, give me a sign." Michael concentrated every ounce of his willpower into moving his finger, managing a faint but deliberate twitch. Rebecca smiled, her resolve matching his. "That's all I needed." The young nurse's role. While Rebecca worked tirelessly behind the scenes, Michael found unexpected solace in Emily, a young nurse assigned to his care. Emily was bright and cheerful, her optimism infectious even in the face of Michael's condition. Unaware of his growing awareness, she spoke to him daily, sharing stories about her family, her aspirations, and the struggles of working long shifts at the hospital. One afternoon, Emily brought a small bouquet of wildflowers and placed them on the table beside his bed. "I thought you could use a little color in here," she said with a smile. "Flowers always make me feel better." Though he couldn't respond, Michael felt a warmth he hadn't experienced in a long time. Emily's genuine kindness reminded him of the good in the world, a stark contrast to Lisa's cold-hearted betrayal. Over time, Emily's presence became a bright spot in Michael's otherwise monotonous days. Her words, though seemingly inconsequential, fueled his determination to fight back. He was surrounded by people who cared, people worth fighting for. Lisa's slip-up. One evening, while Rebecca was reviewing Michael's progress, Lisa arrived unexpectedly. Her demeanor was tense, her steps hurried as she entered the room. Rebecca, sensing something was amiss, remained nearby under the guise of checking Michael's IV. "Mrs. Lisa," Rebecca greeted her with a polite smile. "I was just about to check on his vitals. Is there something you need?" Lisa waved her off. No, I'll just sit with him for a while." Rebecca nodded and exited the room, but not before slipping a small recording device beneath Michael's mattress. She had grown increasingly suspicious of Lisa's visits and was determined to capture any evidence that might help their case. Alone with Michael, Lisa leaned in close, her mask of concern slipping as her frustration bubbled to the surface. "You were always so stubborn," she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. "If you just died in that crash, this would have been so much easier." Michael's heart pounded, the words solidifying everything he had come to suspect. Lisa continued, her tone shifting from anger to calculation. "But no, you had to cling to life, didn't you? Well, it won't matter soon. The lawyer says the estate transfer is nearly complete. Once it's done, James and I will be free of this burden." The venom in her words left no doubt in Michael's mind. Lisa had never intended to remain by his side. She was already planning a life without him, a life funded by his hard work and betrayal. The alliance strengthens. The next day, Rebecca returned to Michael's room with a determined expression. She had reviewed the recording from Lisa's visit and shared it with the lawyer. "We've got her," she whispered, her voice brimming with confidence. "It's all there. The admissions, the plans. With this and the financial evidence, we can stop her before she does any more damage." Michael's finger twitched in approval, his silent gratitude evident. Rebecca placed her hand gently on his. "Stay strong, Michael. We're almost there. Soon, you'll have your life back." Over the following days, Rebecca intensified her efforts. She worked with the lawyer to compile a comprehensive case against Lisa and James, ensuring every detail was airtight. At the same time, She continued to encourage Michael's recovery, introducing small physical exercises to help him regain his strength. Though the road ahead was still daunting, Michael felt a renewed sense of hope. With Rebecca's guidance and Emily's unwavering kindness, he was no longer alone in this fight. He was preparing for the confrontation that would not only expose Lisa and James, but also reclaim his dignity and his future. A web of betrayal and strengthened resolve. The momentum had shifted. Michael, once a passive observer of his life unraveling around him, was now silently directing his allies to uncover the truth. With Rebecca and Emily on his side, and the lawyer quietly building an airtight case, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Lisa and James might have underestimated him, but he was determined to show them the strength they had so cruelly discounted. Rebecca's revelation. Rebecca's late-night visits to Michael became increasingly frequent as their plan took shape. She continued to monitor his progress while simultaneously working behind the scenes to gather damning evidence. One evening, as she adjusted Michael's bed, she leaned close and whispered, "We found a key piece of evidence." Michael's heart pounded in anticipation. He focused on Rebecca's every word, his body still but his mind racing. The lawyer uncovered a series of emails between Lisa and James. Rebecca continued, "They've been planning this for over a year, even before your accident. The emails detail their intentions to transfer your estate, frame it as a precautionary measure, and eventually dispose of you." Michael's chest tightened at the word dispose. The betrayal ran deeper than he had imagined. Lisa and James had orchestrated his downfall long before the accident that left him incapacitated. The knowledge fueled his determination to fight back, no matter how long it took. Rebecca noticed the tension in his face and placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "We're going to stop them, Michael, but we need to act carefully. They're cunning, and they've covered their tracks well. The recordings, emails, and financial records are enough to take them down, but we need to time it perfectly." Michael managed the faintest twitch of his finger, a silent acknowledgement of her words. Rebecca smiled softly. "We'll do this together." A fragile facade. Lisa's visits continued, her mask of concern slipping more frequently as her impatience grew. Michael noticed the subtle changes in her behavior, the sharp edge to her tone, the hurried glances at her phone, and the way her gaze lingered on him, as if willing him to remain unconscious. She had grown bolder, her confidence in his helplessness making her careless. One afternoon, while sitting at his bedside, Lisa received another call from James. Without bothering to step out of the room, she answered, her voice low but urgent. "Yes, James, I know it's taking longer than we planned. The doctors keep saying he could wake up any day, but it's unlikely. He's been like this for months." Michael listened intently, his pulse quickening as she continued. "The lawyer said the final documents will be ready tomorrow. Once we sign, the properties and accounts will be ours. After that, it won't matter what happens to him." Her words dripped with venom, and Michael felt his anger surge. Lisa ended the call and turned to him, her expression shifting to one of practiced tenderness. "Oh, Michael," she murmured, stroking his hand. "You've been through so much, but don't worry. I'll take care of everything." Michael wanted to scream, to confront her, but he knew he couldn't tip his hand. Not yet. Emily's unknowing contribution. Emily remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing behind the scenes. Her visits were a source of light for Michael, her genuine warmth and optimism, a stark contrast to Lisa's deceit. One day, she brought a book to read aloud to him, her voice soothing as she recounted tales of resilience and triumph. "Sometimes," Emily said during a pause, "we face challenges that seem impossible, but they only make us stronger in the end. I believe that's what you're doing, Mr. Michael. I know you're in there, fighting, and I know you'll come back to us." Her words brought tears to Michael's eyes. Though he couldn't express it, her kindness and belief in him strengthened his resolve. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for the people who believed in him, who cared about him. Rebecca's growing concern. Rebecca, however, began to notice Emily's interactions with Lisa. Though the young nurse was well-meaning, her casual updates about Michael's condition, shared in passing with Lisa, had the potential to tip their hand. One evening, Rebecca pulled Emily aside. "I need to ask you something," she said, her tone measured. "What have you shared with Mrs. Lisa about Mr. Michael's condition?" Emily's eyes widened in surprise. "Just the usual things. That his vitals are stable, that he's showing signs of improvement." "Why?" Rebecca hesitated before answering. "Emily, I trust you, but you need to be careful. There's more going on here than you realize. For now, let's keep any updates strictly between us." Emily frowned but nodded. "Of course, Dr. Hart. Is everything okay?" Rebecca managed a small smile. "It will be. Just trust me on this." The turning point. The next day, Rebecca approached Michael with a determined expression. "It's time to take the next step," she said softly. "Lisa and James are getting bolder. They're planning to finalize the estate transfer tomorrow. We need to act before they do." She placed a small device in his hand, a recorder she had hidden in the room. "We've already gathered a lot of evidence, but we need a little more. This device will record everything Lisa says when she thinks she's alone with you. With any luck, she'll incriminate herself further." Michael tightened his grip on the recorder, a silent promise that he would do his part. That evening, Lisa arrived, her demeanor tense and impatient. She sat beside Michael, pulling out a stack of papers from her bag. "I just need to finalize a few things," she muttered, more to herself than to him. "Once this is done, everything will fall into place." As she reviewed the documents, her phone buzzed. She answered quickly, her voice curt. "James, I'm at the hospital." "Yes, I'll bring the signed papers tomorrow. Don't worry. It's almost over." Michael's heart pounded as her words were captured on the recorder. Lisa hung up and leaned closer to him, her voice a venomous whisper. "You should have just let go, Michael, but it doesn't matter now. Soon, this will all be behind us." Her words were the final nail in her coffin. Michael knew they now had everything they needed. A new ally. That night, Rebecca returned to Michael's room with the lawyer. The three of them reviewed the recordings and documents, crafting a strategy that would leave no room for Lisa and James to escape justice. "We'll confront them tomorrow," the lawyer said, his voice firm. "They won't see it coming." Rebecca placed a hand on Michael's shoulder. "You've done more than anyone could have asked for. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, we end this." Michael closed his eyes, his mind racing with anticipation. The battle for his life, his legacy, and his dignity was about to reach its climax. For the first time since waking, he felt hope, not just for justice, but for a future free of betrayal. The confrontation. The dawn of the most critical day in Michael's journey arrived, ushered in by a pale, gray light that filtered through the hospital room's window. The weight of months of betrayal, quiet resilience, and careful planning had brought him to this moment. Today, the truth would be revealed, and justice served. Rebecca entered Michael's room early that morning, her expression resolute. "Michael," she whispered as she adjusted his monitors, "today is the day. Lisa and James won't know what hit them. Are you ready?" Michael's faint finger twitch was all the confirmation Rebecca needed. She nodded, her resolve stealing further. "The lawyer has everything prepared. When they arrive to sign the documents, we'll be waiting." Lisa's final move. Lisa was running late that morning, her nerves frayed as she hastily threw on an outfit that exuded elegance. She had carefully curated her appearance for the day's meeting with the lawyer. Today was supposed to be the culmination of her plan, the day she would secure everything she and James had plotted for. She glanced at her phone, where James's messages buzzed incessantly. "James, are you on your way?" "James." The lawyer called. "He's already at the hospital." "James, don't mess this up, Lisa." Lisa scowled at the screen. James had grown increasingly impatient, and she was beginning to tire of his constant demands. "He acts like I'm the only one with anything to lose," she muttered under her breath. Grabbing the neatly stacked papers from the table, she hurried out of the house, her mind racing with the possibilities of how her new life would unfold once everything was settled. Rebecca's preparations. Rebecca spent the morning coordinating with the lawyer and ensuring all loose ends were tied up. She had arranged for a private conference room within the hospital, where the confrontation would take place. Michael's recordings, financial documents, and other evidence were prepared, ready to be presented when the time came. She glanced at the clock, her nerves steady. Everything had to go perfectly. There would be no second chances. Emily had been informed of the broader plan, though Rebecca spared her the more sordid details to protect her innocence. Emily, ever the optimist, promised to stand by Michael's side through whatever was to come. "I'll be ready to help him if he needs anything," Emily had said with a reassuring smile. Rebecca was grateful for her quiet strength. The meeting begins. Lisa arrived at the hospital shortly after noon, her heels clicking against the polished floors as she made her way to Michael's room. She carried herself with confidence, unaware of the trap that awaited her. "Good morning, Mrs. Lisa," Rebecca greeted her as she entered. "I was just about to check on Michael." Lisa waved dismissively, her attention solely on the papers in her hand. "That's fine, Dr. Hart. I won't be long. Just need to finalize a few things." Rebecca watched as Lisa approached Michael's bed, her fox concern practically dripping from her expression. "Good morning, my love," Lisa said softly, leaning in close. "Today's an important day for us. Soon, everything will be settled." Michael remained motionless, his breathing steady. His silence was no longer a burden. It was a weapon, one that Lisa didn't realize she was about to walk straight into. After a few minutes, Rebecca cleared her throat. "Mrs. Lisa, the lawyer is waiting in the conference room. He asked if you could join him now." Lisa straightened, adjusting her blazer. "Of course. Let's get this over with." The confrontation unfolds. The conference room was modest, with a long table at its center and documents neatly arranged at one end. The lawyer, a seasoned professional with an air of calm authority, sat at the head of the table. James was already seated, his expression betraying a mix of impatience and unease. Lisa entered with confidence, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. She greeted James with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We're finally here," she said, placing the papers on the table. Rebecca followed close behind, her calm demeanor masking the storm that was about to erupt. The lawyer gestured for Lisa and James to sit. "Thank you for coming," he began, his voice steady. "Before we proceed with the signing, there are a few matters we need to address." Lisa's smile faltered slightly. "Matters? What matters? I thought everything was in order." The lawyer opened a folder, revealing a stack of documents. "Mrs. Lisa, Mr. James, we have evidence that suggests fraudulent activity concerning Mr. Michael's estate. I've reviewed financial records, email correspondences, and recorded conversations that indicate a conspiracy to seize his assets unlawfully." The room fell silent, the weight of the accusation hanging in the air. James was the first to react, his face flushing red. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "What proof do you have?" The lawyer pressed a button on a small recorder, and the room filled with Lisa's voice, cold and calculating. "Yes, James, the lawyer said everything is in place. Once we sign, the properties and accounts will be ours. After that, it won't matter what happens to him." Lisa's face turned ashen as the recording continued, exposing every detail of their betrayal. James looked at her in shock, his bravado crumbling as the evidence mounted. Rebecca stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Michael has been conscious for weeks. He's heard everything. He knows everything." The revelation hit Lisa like a freight train. She turned to Rebecca, her eyes wide with disbelief. "That's impossible. He can't." Her words faltered as the door behind her opened. Michael, supported by Emily, entered the room, his determined gaze locking onto Lisa. Though he still moved with difficulty, his presence was undeniable, a silent testament to his strength and resilience. Lisa staggered back, her facade of confidence shattering completely. Michael, I didn't. Save it, Michael said, his voice hoarse but resolute. I heard everything, Lisa. Every lie, every plan. I trusted you, and you betrayed me. James stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Michael, this isn't what it looks like. Enough, Michael interrupted, his voice gaining strength. I've heard enough from both of you. The lawyer stood, his tone now authoritative. The evidence is overwhelming. Lisa and James, you will face the full legal consequences of your actions. The authorities have already been notified. At that moment, 2 uniformed officers entered the room, their presence sealing Lisa and James's fate. Lisa broke down, her tears no longer part of an act, but born of genuine fear and regret. James, on the other hand, remained silent, his shoulders slumped in defeat. A moment of triumph. As Lisa and James were escorted from the room, Michael felt a profound sense of relief wash over him. The battle was far from over. There would be legal proceedings, and the emotional scars would take time to heal, but for the first time in months, he felt in control of his life. Rebecca placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You did it, Michael. It's over. Emily, standing by his side, smiled through tears. You're stronger than anyone I've ever met. Michael nodded, his voice steady as he replied, This is just the beginning. I'm ready to move forward. The aftermath. The room that had borne witness to betrayal now felt lighter, as though the oppressive weight of deceit had been lifted. Michael sat quietly in his wheelchair, staring out of the hospital window. The warm sunlight spilling into the room felt different today. Brighter, freer, like a symbol of the second chance he had fought for. Lisa and James were gone, escorted away to face the consequences of their actions, but their absence left behind a storm of emotions that Michael couldn't ignore. Rebecca entered the room, her familiar presence grounding him. She placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression a mix of concern and reassurance. How are you feeling, Michael? She asked softly. Michael let out a long breath. Relieved, he said after a pause, his voice still raspy but stronger than before. But also empty. I don't even know where to start rebuilding my life. Rebecca nodded, understanding his turmoil. It's normal to feel this way. You've been through so much, and it's going to take time to process everything. But you don't have to face it alone. The emotional fallout. Despite the victory, the following days were anything but easy. The public fallout from the scandal was swift and unforgiving. News of Lisa and James's arrest spread like wildfire. The details of their schemes splashed across headlines and whispered about in business circles. While the exposure of their betrayal vindicated Michael, it also brought with it a sense of deep personal loss. Lisa's betrayal was particularly difficult to reconcile. As he lay in bed at night, Michael found himself revisiting the happier moments of their marriage. The long walks in the park, the quiet evenings spent laughing over dinner, the dreams they once shared. Those memories felt tainted now, their sweetness soured by the knowledge of her duplicity. But alongside the pain was a burgeoning sense of resolve. Michael knew he couldn't let their actions define him or his future. He had a second chance, a rare opportunity to rebuild his life on a foundation of strength and integrity. Reclaiming his life. Michael threw himself into his recovery with a renewed vigor, spurred on by the support of Rebecca and Emily. Rebecca, ever the compassionate yet determined doctor, introduced more rigorous physical therapy exercises, while Emily's unwavering optimism continued to brighten his days. You're stronger than you realize, Mr. Michael, Emily said one afternoon as she helped him practice standing with a walker. Every step you take, no matter how small, is proof of that. Michael gritted his teeth as he pushed himself to stand, the strain on his weakened muscles a reminder of how far he still had to go. But he met Emily's gaze with a faint smile. It's not just me. I wouldn't have made it this far without the two of you. Rebecca, who had been observing from the corner of the room, spoke up. You've had help, Yes, but the strength to keep fighting. That's all you, Michael. Don't forget that. Strengthening bonds. As Michael's physical strength grew, so too did his relationships with Rebecca and Emily. Their bond, forged in the crucible of his recovery, became a source of profound comfort and stability. Rebecca, once his doctor, had become a trusted confidant, her calm presence and sharp intellect an anchor in his tumultuous world. Emily, with her infectious laughter and genuine kindness, felt like a ray of sunlight, a reminder of the goodness that still existed despite the darkness he had endured. One evening, as the three of them shared a quiet moment in the hospital garden, Michael turned to Rebecca. "I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done," he said earnestly. "You've gone above and beyond for me. I wouldn't be here without you." Rebecca smiled warmly. "You don't need to thank me, Michael. Helping you has been its own reward. Besides, you've reminded me why I became a doctor in the first place, to make a difference." Emily chimed in, her tone light but sincere. "And you've reminded me that even in the darkest times, people can surprise you with their strength. You're a fighter, Mr. Michael." Michael chuckled softly. "I'm starting to believe that myself." The legal aftermath. The legal proceedings against Lisa and James moved swiftly, thanks to the mountain of evidence Rebecca and the lawyer had compiled. Their betrayal was laid bare in court, their recorded conversations and financial transactions painting a damning picture of their calculated cruelty. Public opinion turned sharply against them, and both were sentenced to significant prison time for their crimes. Though the outcome brought closure, it also left Michael with mixed emotions. Lisa's fall from grace was particularly painful to witness. Despite her actions, a small part of him mourned the woman he had once loved, the life they had shared, and the dreams they had built together. A step forward. After the court proceedings, Michael decided it was time to leave the hospital and return home. His departure was bittersweet. The hospital had been both a place of pain and a haven of healing. As he packed his belongings, Rebecca and Emily surprised him with a small celebration in the lounge, a symbolic send-off for the man who had fought so hard to reclaim his life. "We couldn't let you leave without saying goodbye," Emily said, presenting him with a small potted plant. "It's a peace lily. They're resilient, just like you." Michael smiled, touched by the gesture. "Thank you for everything." Rebecca placed a hand on his shoulder. "This isn't goodbye, Michael. You know where to find us if you need anything." As he left the hospital, supported by Emily and Rebecca, Michael felt a surge of hope. The road ahead would be long and filled with challenges, but he was ready to face it with the strength and resilience he had discovered within himself. Redefining wealth. Back at home, Michael found solace in simplicity. He spent his days reconnecting with old friends, exploring hobbies he had long neglected, and finding joy in the little things, like the sound of birds outside his window or the warmth of the sun on his face. He also began giving back to the community, using his wealth and resources to support causes close to his heart. True wealth, he often said, isn't about money or possessions. It's about the people who stand by you and the impact you leave on the world. Rebecca and Emily remained an integral part of his life. The three of them grew closer, their shared journey creating a bond that felt more like family than friendship. Together, they celebrated milestones, faced challenges, and built a future filled with hope and possibility. A new beginning. Months had passed since the storm of betrayal, legal battles, and personal reflection. The wounds left by Lisa and James, though still tender, had begun to heal. Michael had emerged from the shadows of despair with a renewed sense of purpose and a determination to rebuild his life, not just for himself, but for the people who had stood by him when he was at his lowest. Healing and growth. Michael's recovery, both physical and emotional, became a journey of self-discovery. His mornings were no longer dictated by the demands of work or the expectations of others. Instead, he devoted his time to strengthening his body and mind. Each day began with a walk through the sprawling garden of his estate, a place that had once felt empty and lifeless, but now pulsed with the vibrancy of new beginnings. Rebecca continued to play an instrumental role in his life, visiting regularly to check on his progress and ensure he was sticking to the physical therapy regimen she had designed. Their conversations often strayed from medical updates to discussions about life, resilience, and the future. "You've come a long way, Michael," Rebecca said one afternoon as they sat on the terrace overlooking the garden. "But I know you're not the type to stop here. What's next for you?" Michael leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. "I've been thinking a lot about what really matters. For years, I chased success, thinking it would bring happiness. But now, I realize the most valuable things in life are the connections we build and the impact we leave behind." Rebecca nodded, her eyes filled with admiration. "So what does that look like for you?" "I want to use what I've built to help others," Michael said with a quiet determination. "There are so many people who've been betrayed, who feel like they've lost everything. If I can help even a few of them find their way back, it'll all be worth it." A new project. True to his word, Michael began laying the groundwork for a foundation dedicated to supporting individuals recovering from betrayal, financial loss, or personal tragedy. He named it the Second Chances Initiative, a nod to the journey he had endured and the opportunities he now wanted to provide for others. Rebecca and Emily became his closest collaborators on the project. Rebecca, with her analytical mind and compassionate heart, took on the role of strategic advisor, helping Michael shape the foundation's mission and goals. Emily, with her infectious optimism and knack for connecting with people, became the face of the organization, spearheading outreach programs and sharing her own experiences of standing by Michael during his darkest hours. The foundation quickly gained traction, its message resonating with people from all walks of life. Donations poured in, and Michael found himself busier than ever. But this time, his work felt meaningful and fulfilling. Each success story that emerged from the foundation was a reminder of the power of resilience and the strength of the human spirit. A renewed purpose. As the foundation flourished, so did Michael's personal life. He had learned to balance his responsibilities with moments of joy and relaxation. Rebecca and Emily remained constants in his life, their presence a source of unwavering support and companionship. One weekend, Michael invited them to join him on a trip to a coastal town, a quiet retreat where they could escape the demands of their work and simply enjoy each other's company. The trip was filled with laughter, long walks along the beach, and heartfelt conversations that deepened their bond. One evening, as the three of them sat around a bonfire on the shore, Michael turned to Rebecca. "You've been my anchor through all of this. I can't imagine my life without you in it." Rebecca smiled, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames. "You've taught me just as much, Michael. Watching you rebuild your life has been one of the most inspiring things I've ever experienced." Emily, sitting beside them, raised her glass of sparkling water. "To second chances," she said with a grin, "and to making the most of them." Michael and Rebecca clinked their glasses with hers, the moment a celebration of resilience, friendship, and the possibilities that lay ahead. Confronting the past. Though Michael was moving forward, the echoes of his past still lingered. One day, he received a letter from Lisa. She had written from prison, her words a mixture of regret and desperation. "Michael, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I needed to write this. I've had a lot of time to think about what I did, and I realize now how much I hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I hope one day you can find it in your heart to let go of the anger and pain I caused. I'll carry the weight of my actions for the rest of my life, but I needed you to know that I regret what I did. Lisa." Michael read the letter twice before setting it down. The emotions it stirred were complex, a mix of anger, sadness, and a faint flicker of compassion. He wasn't ready to respond, but he realized he didn't feel the same searing resentment he once had. Forgiveness, he knew, would come in time, not for Lisa's sake but for his own. a future full of possibilities. Months turned into a year, and Michael's life became a testament to the power of resilience and hope. The foundation had helped hundreds of people, and its success had drawn attention from media outlets and influential figures. Michael's story became an inspiration, a reminder that even in the face of betrayal and loss, it was possible to rise again. Rebecca and Emily remained integral parts of his journey, their relationships evolving into something deeper and more profound. The three of them became an inseparable team, united not just by their shared history, but by their commitment to building a brighter future. One evening, as they celebrated the anniversary of the Foundation's launch, Michael stood to address the gathered crowd. His voice, once strained and weak, was now steady and strong. "I stand here today not as someone who overcame betrayal, but as someone who was given a second chance. None of this would have been possible without the people who stood by me when I couldn't stand for myself. To Rebecca, to Emily, and to everyone who has supported this journey, thank you. This isn't just my victory, it's ours." The room erupted in applause, but Michael's gaze was focused on Rebecca and Emily, whose expressions mirrored his own sense of gratitude and hope. The journey continues. As the evening wound down, Michael found a quiet moment to reflect. The path he had walked had been filled with pain and challenges, but it had also led him to a place of strength and purpose. He had learned to value the connections that mattered, to forgive himself and others, and to embrace the beauty of second chances. With Rebecca by his side and Emily as a steadfast friend, Michael knew the future was bright. Together, they had turned a story of betrayal into one of triumph, a story that was still being written, one chapter at a time.